what is your best understanding of what enlightenment actually is? And feel free to take as much time as you want to answer, and we'll go back and forth on it
Right.
for a little while.
You know, it's one of those things that you almost like have to define terms before even responding, right? But again, I kind of I don't think I use there's terms of like awakening, realization, enlightenment, liberation, and some people might use them interchangeably entirely. Um, I feel like just because in my own unfolding and seeing it in other people, it seems to me that for most people, it doesn't come in one single strike. Uh, there's an initial recognition, which I would call awakening, probably, for like.
Is that what they call kensho?
So kensho literally means seeing nature, right? So you kind of see the nature of your mind.
Hmm.
But I could say, I could divide it into, let's say, roughly like three stages, one could say. First one would be recognizing the nature of mind, right? So it's simply, um, initially we are just so identified with the content and, the body and mind, basically, right? The content of mind and this body is me. Everything else is not me, right? So one could say that the central piece here is kind of identity, right? Like, what do we take ourselves to be? So initially, the sort of my thoughts are defining, are kind of statements of truth, are defining my reality. And I see the world, even if I can't recognize it in a moment, we can see it mostly as usually with those shifts, we kind of see things in a rearview mirror, what kind of is gone, rather than it's more difficult to recognize it beforehand. But we see the world through elaborate kind of spider web of thoughts, right? Of different beliefs. Let's say if I
Filters,
exactly, yeah. So if
conditioning,
I
that kind of
think
thing.
of myself, I'm a bad person, my interaction will be seen through my own actions and actions of others towards me will be seen through that lens. I might have some other different lens, like it's not even one coherent view, right? Like ego, the mind identification is kind of a little bit fractured, one could say. It's many pieces that kind of I guess maybe the internal family systems are kind of trying to point to that, right? There are different parts of ourselves, and they have different needs, sometimes different psychological age, and there's but as long as we're identifying with the content of our mind, we are constantly at the mercy of that movement of content of thought. So then there can happen this recognition that actually the content itself is simply like a movie projected on the screen, right? And yet there is a light that makes that projection possible. So the whole field of consciousness, it almost like wakes up, right? It sort of um, it's recognition of its own nature, right? So it's not necessarily that even the small I is recognizing something or becoming an awakened self. It's more that the true nature of mind, which is uh, at least experientially, it feels like it's timeless, unlimited, undistractable, and I can perfectly understand why someone would you use the language more of like a kind of God word, right? Like.
Yeah, and when you say that, true nature of mind,
Mhm.
timeless, unlimited, undistractable, are you really referring to mind, which usually means a more sort of
Mhm.
agitated, active level, or are you referring to that which underlies and illuminates the mind,
Yeah.
consciousness
So
itself?
ultimately, there is no difference. But initially, we have to,
Okay.
of course, disidentify with the layer of content and then see the nature of it, as you said, underlying thing.
Yeah, like see the movie
Yes.
screen that the movies are
But
playing
yet
on.
later
Yeah.
we also see that even the nature of even that movement of confusion is in itself the same, has the same nature as the whole field. But initially we need to kind of
Right.
disidentify from that. So there's like sometimes there can be this moment of kind of stepping back, seeing as content is just content, and some people experience this sort of witness stage. But ultimately,
Hmm.
in my experience, that is also that is also a duality that gets sort of transcended or healed or seen through, however you want to phrase it. Yeah.
And there's that same, that's model in
Mhm.
Hindu thought too, that you go into a witnessing phase, and then later on there's more
Mhm.
unification and, kind of a unity
Yeah.
consciousness thing.